Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier journalist, your favorite professor, and the sworn enemy of all the local social justice clowns and woke fools, Fernando Uribe. Hope you all had a wonderful summer. It's great to be back in the studio, and of course, let's get to it. This is what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, over the summer, and of course, politics never takes a break with me, I made a point to keep up to date with what's going on in our political and social climate. And certainly, I'm sure if you look at your social media feed or just watch the nightly news, we all know that the Met Gala took place recently in Manhattan during New York Fashion Week. And also, folks, it's also the reality that I would argue that masculinity is under attack right now in today's society. And of course, I'm here to stand up for it. Now, let me just preface this by saying that, of course, I know that sort of is a very polarizing and maybe an attempt by me for clickbait, but it's not. It's about the reality, as it pertains to talking about masculinity, as if it's a bad thing. Folks, let me just preface this by saying that, listen, I'm a guy who prides himself on gambling. I'm glad the NFL is back. I like to be out social drinker. I like to gallivant. I've been known to be a little bit of a bachelor, and that's all well and good. And these are qualities that we should admire, not demonize. But you wouldn't know that by checking it. Again, your news feed on social media or watching, again, primetime news television, because, of course, there's this concerted effort by many liberals in the media, also in institutions, also leftists, the progressives, that sort of want to look at masculinity as something toxic, as something that's really bad. Folks, again, and I don't want to sort of sound extremely polarizing, which I know I can be, but let's be very honest. I mean, did you look at some of these pictures from the Met Gala recently? And listen, if you're a gay man, God bless you. Go do your thing, okay? I'm all about live and let live. I don't bother anybody. But by the same token, listen, I don't need unnecessary, displays of PDA. I'm not sticking, my tongue down whatever woman I'm dating right now and her throat. I don't need to see a guy sticking his, tongue down a guy's throat either. But the reality is that it's one of those things that, quite frankly, what are we trying to encourage, or what are we trying to sort of force down the throats of everyday people, whether it's parents, their children, etc. And it just seems to me like, listen, you want to be a guy, that's all well and good, but, stop wearing dresses. You start doing that, you start bringing ridicule on yourself. Stop trying to sort of change iconic figures when it comes to literature or the movies or comics. And I understand all that. We live in this woke society. We have to acquiesce to the alphabet army and all that stuff. But folks, there's just some things that, quite frankly, we shouldn't be doing, okay? And don't call me some boomer. Don't call me some out-of-touch dad or, grandpa. I'm none of those things, folks. I'm pretty moderate enough as it is. But what I'm also not going to do is sort of cave to all the wokeness that seems to be sort of, encompassing everything in our society. Folks, if you had a chance, check out Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People. Okay, on the cover of it is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Folks, have you ever seen a bigger beta male than him? I mean, this is a guy who's supposed to be the future king of England, and when he's standing next to his wife, he looks like he's like a hairdresser asking her, "Hey, Meghan, how your layers looking?" Folks, that's not masculinity. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with being an alpha male. All right? And unfortunately, what we're seeing in everyday society is this, again, progressive attack. It's like, oh, being masculine is not something we should push. It's toxic. No, it's not. Folks, let me tell you something. You want to talk about toxic masculinity? Go to the Middle East. Take a pick of the country you want to go there. Okay? See how they treat women there. See how they treat minorities like gay people. All right? So for all you liberals and leftists, and again, the social justice clowns and woke fools, you want bitch and moan about how bad you have it here or how bad women have it in this country? Again, go to the Middle East, take your pick, and you'll see exactly that, you should be lucky to live here. You should be thanking your lucky stars or whatever God you worship that you live here. All right? Don't come at me about toxic masculinity, folks, because it isn't. It doesn't exist. But people on the left would have you believe that it does. And quite frankly, it doesn't. Okay? A strong father figure is good for the household. Now, does it always happen? Of course not. Single-parent households have become the norm in the United States for well over 4 decades. And that's okay. I've been very blessed to grow up in a 2-parent household. Now everybody has that opportunity. But at the same token, there are certain alpha male qualities that we need to instill in our boys. And we're not doing that by trying to normalize men wearing dresses or other things by saying, oh, it's okay, it's evolution, it's the times changing. No, folks, it's not about that. It's about making sure that we have alpha males and that we keep alpha males. Nothing wrong with a little testosterone, ladies and gentlemen. There just isn't. Okay? It's why one of my favorite idols, and of course one of my favorite literary characters, is James Bond. Of course, the iconic character by Ian Fleming that we've seen in all the 007 books and of course the movies for the last 50 years. And why do I like James Bond? I don't know. He's a gambler, he's a social drinker, he's been a bachelor, he's been a serial dater, at times a womanizer. Hey folks, these are all qualities that I admire because these are qualities that I practice. I get it. It may not make me the most likable guy, but I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I'm here to educate you all and to be informative, and that's what I'm trying to do. And by trying to make sure that we stand up for males, that we stand up for masculinity, that we make sure that alpha males continue to exist, that's not a bad thing. You want to have beta males governing, you want to have beta males in society? Be my guest, but that's exactly what will contribute to the decline that we're seeing in today's society. In the latest edition of the 5-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson, was the founder and editor of the Jersey City Times, Aaron Morrill. Now, we spoke for over an hour on a multitude of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. But before that, let me just preface this by saying that the Jersey City Times is an outstanding news resource here in Hudson County. It's relatively new, but again, I'll give a lot of credit to its founder and editor, Aaron Morrill, for providing interesting interviews, thought-provoking columns, and of course, giving a different perspective about Hudson County's largest city. Once again, we spoke for over an hour on a multitude of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. With 48 days remaining until Election Day, it seems like Mayor Stephen Fulop is a dead sure win for a third term, but of course, Lewis Spears is trying to make as much noise as he can. We'll see if that makes any difference on Election Day, and Aaron had a lot to say about that.
We are 48 days away from Election Day. And certainly there's a lot to be said about what's going on in the mayoral race. There's been a lot of chatter. I'm a big sports fan, so I'll kind of use a term that I think a lot of us sports fans will appreciate. It's getting a little chippy. It's getting a little fickle. It's getting a little testy, Aaron, right now.
Yeah.
We got 48 days to go. A lot of people think Lewis Spears is joined the race a little bit too late. I think a lot of people are supporting him because they are maybe looking for a dissenting voice. But I think it's sort of understood. I think short of some tsunami of turnout, it seems like the mayor's in a really good position to win re-election for a third term. I think mostly because of, getting the support from the county machine that he didn't get in previous elections. And I just think his ground game has been very good because he's been the incumbent for 2 terms. Is that fair to say?
Well, I am not an expert on how campaigns should be run, but my take on it is pretty much the same as yours. I think Lewis is a sincere guy who really does have the interests of the city at heart, and could have a huge future. But I think given the mayor's incredible war chest and support institutionally from the machine, if you will, the endorsements he seems to be racking up. Yesterday he got an environmental endorsement, but he's been endorsed by the Black Caucus and any number of, and as you mentioned, the Hudson County organization. I mean, he's really just done an unbelievable job, and one has to tip one's hat to him of putting together kind of an unstoppable machine. In my view, I just don't see anybody that's going to challenge him. I do think there's a fair amount of discontent with the mayor, although I have to put a caveat on that just because I tend to be in a little bit of a bubble, being sort of the voice in Jersey City, to some degree of the opposition, so I do hear a lot of discontent, but I think when push comes to shove, the mayor's got unbelievable name recognition. He's really skilled at getting his message out there, and at controlling the media narrative. And as such, I just don't see anybody really, having a good shot against him. So that's I agree with you.
Secondly, we discussed a very interesting race in Ward C in Jersey City. Now, certainly the incumbent, Richard Boggiano, who's been a bit of a maverick on the city council for some years now, decided to join the mayor's ticket. Now, one of the opponents against him on Election Day will be former Hudson County prosecutor and now an attorney in the private sector, Tom Zuppa. Now, during the summer, I had a chance to interview Mr. Zuppa on not just my regular Hudson County podcast, Talking Hudson, but also my Insider NJ podcast, Politically Direct. And he seems like a young, energetic guy who's running somewhat of a progressive campaign. Obviously not, and thankfully not one of those annoying progressive campaigns like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or some of the other like locals that are all about being progressive. But as we all know, progressives tend to make things progressively worse. But you know what? Tom Zuppa's candidacy proves to be a very interesting sort of turning point in this campaign also for Mayor Fulop, because let's be honest, folks, a lot of people are telling me that, well, if Tom Zuppa unseats Richard Boggiano, Mayor Fulop might not necessarily be too upset about it. But we talked about that with Aaron Morrill. Let's hear what he had to say.
It just seems like, Tom is that kind of new blood that, the mayor, as you mentioned too, would welcome working with. And at the same time too, I've had a chance to interview Tom over the summer twice on this show and also my Insider NJ podcast. And yeah, he's kind of running a progressive campaign per se. But thankfully he's not, and you know me, my pet peeve with progressives. Like I throw tantrums on the show about them in terms of some of the locals, but he's not running to be like an AOC of Jersey City, thank the Lord, because we all know what a fool and joke she is. But it seems like Tom's being a pragmatist in his campaign. Do you see it? Do you see him that way as well?
Well, I'd say he's being more than a pragmatist. I think he is attempting to thread this needle where he doesn't really levy, and maybe your interviews with him were different than my interview with him, but when I interviewed him, there was not a strong critique of the administration on any issue. It was sort of like, well, we need to get more for Ward C. I'm worried about quality of life. It was a very soft approach to policy. There wasn't, there was nothing in the way of, look, the mayor's done this wrong, he's done that wrong. Boggiano wasn't there for this vote, he voted this way on that. There was none of that. The critique was so soft and mild. It was more, I just want to do more. It was a very kumbaya kind of approach. That may work. People may say, hey, he's a nice looking guy. He's a former prosecutor. He kind of looks the part, he's young, he's not Rich Boggiano, so I'll vote for him. Maybe people are going to like that. I don't think it will stir many of the hardcore sort of like activists or people on the left, but maybe he'll appeal to sort of moderate voters that might over the years have grown tired of Rich Boggiano. I mean, that's what I would assume he would appeal to with his particular approach. Kevin Bing seems to be a little more strident, although not particular, not very, very strident, but more so. But I agree with your take on it 100%. Did you find him critiquing in your interviews? Did you find him critiquing? I know you're doing the interviewing here, but did you find him critiquing the mayor in any kind of sort of pointed way?
No, I think again he's an attorney. I think he was very careful in how he worded his dissatisfaction. I think with leadership in the ward, but I think he. Again, you can go back and folks, you can go back and listen to the episode 2 as well at blogtalkradio.com/talkinghudson. He was very careful, and I think he was complimentary to the mayor, but I think he also made a point to say, hey, things could be better in this ward, and I think I could do a better job. Which, again, as you're the candidate and you're trying to unseat the incumbent, it's basically like boxing, Aaron. It's up to you to kind of, you think you can win on the scorecards with the judges, but at the end of the day, the champ always kind of has an advantage. You have to kind of almost knock them out or be really dominant.
That's been my kind of take on all of the candidates, in a sense. Yeah. They seem all to be a little bit afraid to try to land punches. And I think the mayor, God bless him. I think he's scared a lot of people. I think people are kind of scared to take him on. They know he's a tough character, and he doesn't forget. I think there's definitely a hesitance to really take the guy on. Say what you will about Navarro, he is one of the only guys that really is throwing punches, to use the boxing metaphor. I think. He's the only guy that I think would get on a stage with the mayor and go mano a mano, so to speak. I don't see anybody else really doing that.
As always, it's a very interesting interview with the founder and editor of the Jersey City Times, Aaron Morrill. And once again, you can check out the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. As always, ladies and gentlemen, these are the exclusives that you'll hear only on Talking the Hudson. And again, it's the best analysis and commentary about Hudson County politics each and every week on Blog Talk Radio. Now, here's some local stories for your consideration. And a special thank you to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, it seems that with the current ICE contract due to expire in Hudson County, certainly different activist organizations not just are calling for the release of the current inmates, not just a transfer. Now, certainly, again, the ICE contracts will be expiring this fall, and a local activist group by the name of the New York Immigrant Family Unity Project, I'm probably one of those insufferable, left-wing groups like the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice or Make the Road New Jersey, all these bleeding heart groups that just love to bitch and moan all the time on social media, have been advocating for the release and not the transfer of detainees. Now, here's some details that make this story quite interesting. Now, according to the organization, they said this week, ICE enforcement and detention is racist. We all know it's not, but, they have to bitch and moan about something. It's also unnecessary and dangerous. It tears families apart, it inflicts lifelong trauma, it deprives people of basic human rights and needs, and it kills. With Hudson County exiting its contract with ICE, there will be one fewer jail in which ICE can incarcerate people simply because of where they were born. Now, the end of this contract represents an important first step, but a true victory will result in ending ICE detention nationwide. ICE retains discretion to detain and release individuals, although immigration enforcement is a civil, not criminal matter. They also called on county and federal leaders, specifically U.S. Senators Bob Menendez and Cory Booker, who spoke out against the contract at the end of last year, to join the effort to have detainees released to their families. Now, last week, Hudson County Executive Tom DeGeese revealed that the county planned on exiting the ICE contract by November the 1st, again being reported by the Jersey Journal last week, making up the monetary loss with a pilot reentry program that would receive at least $7 million from state funds. Now, the Hudson County Board of Commissioners, then still freeholders, renewed their ICE contract in November, despite over 9 hours of public commentary opposing the move, as first reported by the Hudson County View. Now, a week before that meeting, again, the activist organization I just mentioned, which includes representations from the Legal Aid Society, the Brooklyn Defender Services, and the Bronx Defenders, Jesus Christ, can we come up with more insufferable names, took a neutral stance in regards to the renewal of the deal. Now, last month, Governor Phil Murphy signed a bill into law prohibiting future county agreements with ICE, though it did not halt or hinder ongoing agreements like the ones in Bergen, Hudson, and Union counties. Well, folks, listen, number one, I'm disappointed in Executive Tom DeGeese for caving to these local activist groups. There's nothing more insufferable than Amy Torres, who's the executive director, for example, of the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, or Make the Road New Jersey, or all these other progressives in the area that seem to know that, they seem to know what's best when it comes to ICE policies. Folks, let me give you a little bit of a reality check here, because I know we've been off for the summer, and school's back in session, and school's in session now. I'm going to give you a little bit of an education on this. Folks, ICE contracts have been going on for some time, okay? And immigration detainees have been going on since the 90s during the Bill Clinton administration. Now, shortly after the terrorist attacks of 9/11 in 2001, the Department of Homeland Security came into existence in early 2003, right, to consolidate multiple federal agencies. And as a result, INS and Customs Enforcement joined together to form ICE. And since then, they've been the agency in charge of enforcing the country's immigration laws. Immigration laws, preserving sovereignty. I think I learned that somewhere. Oh, that's right. I learned it by reading a document called the Constitution. Because in the Constitution, it talks about considerably and specifically about the preservation of borders and sovereignty. Because that's what civilized countries do, right? We preserve sovereignty. Folks, go to Europe. Okay, see how borders are enforced in Europe, right? Because liberals and leftists love to bitch and moan and cite Europe when it suits their narrative, right? Oh, look at these Scandinavian countries. Look how people are treated in Europe. Well, okay, either you be consistent about it completely or not at all. Don't just pick and choose and cherry pick when you want to, fawn over yourselves and have a party in your pants about, how great things are in Europe or how great they think, they do things there. Yeah, they believe in border enforcement. Here, leftists and liberals and social justice clowns and progressives and the woke fools feel like, there's no borders. There's no such thing as anyone who's illegal. I mean, folks, there is. Okay, you're here illegally. You're breaking federal immigration law. And when you're put into an ICE detention center, you're awaiting either a hearing or anything else. So what happens is when we close these centers, like the one in Kearney at the Hudson County Jail, guess what's going to happen? We're going to transfer those people maybe to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or Dover, Delaware, or guess what? Maybe even as south as Birmingham, Alabama. So while your head's supposedly in the right place, your head's up your ass. That's the problem, folks. Again, your heart's in the right place here, but your head's up your ass consistently. And that's what we've always learned about the left and liberals. Okay, they talk out of both sides of their mouth. And that's the problem with this policy. You're going to move people out as far away from their attorneys, which, by the way, are representing them pro bono in their immigration cases, and you're going to send them away from their families. But no, let's just be woke. Let's just eliminate ICE because you know what? Just like defunding the police was a popular acronym last summer, and we all know how well that's gone, right? When cities going to hell. Of course, let's not enforce immigration law. You know what? Let's just let everybody come in and do as they want. Let's just give licenses to illegals. Let's give tuition reimbursements to illegals. Let's just give everything free away to illegals because you know what? We're just that sort of country. Folks, we're not. This is lunacy and madness. But of course, you wouldn't know it with some of these insufferable leftist groups, as I always say. You know what? Their heart might be in the right place, but their head's up their ass. In other local news, U.S. Representative Abiel Ceres went to Washington to vote on a very important infrastructure bill that's come across the desk of both the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Now, again, and shout out to Hudson County TV and Julio Reynoso, and specifically Jeff Henning, for their report on this story. Now, the congressman voted in favor of the passage of the portions of the budget reconciliation bill under the jurisdiction of the Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure. Now, as a senior member of the committee, Congressman Ceres voted to help ensure that the section of this bill, which includes funding to improve rail safety, support emergency management, spur economic development, and reduce generous gas emissions, was approved to be submitted to the Budget Committee. Now, from there, portions of the reconciliation bill being approved by several committees will be packaged together and sent to the floor for a vote with the House of Representatives. Now, folks, let me just say this. I'm always one that is one of the few opinion journalists in New Jersey that's always about fiscal responsibility. I want to make sure that we're not spending like drunken sailors. Again, nothing against sailors. They're very admirable men and women serving in the United States Navy. But we all know what happens in Trenton, right, and also in Washington. Many Democrats struggle with, basic economics, responsible spending, budgeting, they seem to think we print money. I mean, theoretically we do, with the Federal Reserve, but, let's not print money just for the sake of spending it. Now, when I look at this bill overall, yes, do we need rail improvements? Absolutely. I mean, New Jersey Transit is as big a mess as there ever is of any transit system in the country. And they can sort of talk and bloviate all they want about, they've made market improvement even during the pandemic. No, they haven't. New Jersey Transit still stinks. They're overpriced. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any relief soon. But when it comes to infrastructure repairs, we saw that during Hurricane Ida. We've seen that with other hurricanes and other torrential rainfalls. So yes, that's important to put that into perspective. Now, when it comes to the reduction of generous, greenhouse gases, folks, here's a newsflash. China and India pollute the planet a hell of a lot more than we do. And that's fact, okay? That's not, conjecture or speculation. You can look it up. But for whatever reason, the responsibility about preserving the planet falls on the United States. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, I think if every country sort of put their part in, we could sort of do more to help preserve the environment. I'm not one of these climate hysterics. We're not going to be underwater soon. Aquaman's not going to come from Atlantis and land on, Boulevard East because we're all underwater. That's not going to happen anytime soon, folks. So calm yourselves. But when it comes to being responsible with the environment, yeah, I'm all for that. When it comes to infrastructure improvements, yeah, why not? It seems responsible. But let's do it in a way, again, that seems fiscally sensible. I haven't seen the exact numbers on this, but it would look that, hey, with a bipartisan approach between Republicans and Democrats, this is something we should all applaud. Lastly, folks, I want to give you a little bit of a reminder. We are in mid-September, but October's right around the corner. And as you all know, I'm a very dedicated philanthropist. And during October, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And every year, short of last year because of the pandemic, I've been proud to host a professor's quest to save breasts to benefit the American Cancer Society, and more importantly, making strides against breast cancer. And coming up on Friday, October the 8th, at the famous Mama Juana Cafe by the river in West New York, right along the waterfront, I'll be hosting the 13th edition again of this very successful fundraiser. Now, in the coming weeks, I'll be talking more about this event, what it represents, obviously my partnership with the Union City PBA number 8, and of course, all our great sponsors and local businesses that'll be jumping on board with this fantastic event. So folks, again, mark it on your calendars on Friday night, October the 8th, from 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. at Mama Juana by the river in West New York. We'll do our part to defeat breast cancer once and for all. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/hmgtv. You can also check out the Hudson Media Group on their YouTube page. Don't forget to follow them on both Instagram and Twitter, and also like them on Facebook. I can't say enough about the faith and support that I get from its owner, Pat O'Melia, and the great production staff that I work with every week here to bring you Talking Politics. I'm grateful for their support and their encouragement of the show as we keep going here in 2021. Folks, also remember, live every Wednesday night on Blog Talk Radio, you can check out the 5-time award-winning podcast Talking the Hudson by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. You can download episodes and listen to them anywhere and any time from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. I'll continue bringing you exclusives such as Jersey City Times founder and editor Aaron Morrill, Hudson County Democratic Organization Chairwoman Amy DeGees, Tap Into Jersey City columnist Al Sullivan, and HUDPost founder and editor James De Los Santos. It's these exclusives that, you won't hear anywhere else. And once again, it's always the best analysis and commentary about what's going on in Hudson County politics every single week on Blog Talk Radio. Make sure you check me out on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen, at NoFilterUribe. And also hit me up on my own Instagram, at Professor Fernando Uribe. I'm quite grateful for all the new followers, tons of likes. And I know many of you enjoy my Instagram stories. Whether it's about politics, everything going on in sports, pro wrestling, politically incorrect memes, awkward humor, whatever it is. I appreciate you tuning in, and I know you do share the content, so I'm especially grateful for that. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm New Jersey's premier journalist, your favorite professor, and the sworn enemy of local social justice clowns and woke fools everywhere, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, and thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.